They were a young couple, bound together by passion and ambition.
When you're young and in love, you think you're invincible. Nothing could go wrong.
But then she vanished without a trace.
They were trying to find any idea of what Alice's whereabouts could be.
We were putting up flyers everywhere.
A chilling discovery leaves the community gripped with terror.
The body had been mutilated.
There were the initials of some white supremacist groups.
No one saw that coming. No one.
Whoever had committed this crime was truly a monster.
It will take detectives more than a decade of digging to uncover the truth.
People do crazy things for love, and no one had any idea how crazy this case was really going to become.
It's early morning on January 24th, 2000, as two men make their way through the high desert 60 miles northeast of Reno, Nevada.
They were employed by a mining company to go and basically check the property that the mining company owned for trespassers and things like that.
How much farther? We're almost there.
There's just nothing up there. You basically end up going down the side road that leads to literally nowhere. It's just so vast.
But when the two prospectors finally reach the edge of the property, they stumble upon a horrific scene.
It looked like the body of a woman, but it was so badly decomposed, it was hard to make out any characteristics at this point.
Not only had she been exposed to the elements, but she had been exposed to the animals, too.
We need to call this in.
They were horrified by what they found, and they called the county sheriff.
When investigators from the Churchill County Sheriff's Office arrive, it quickly becomes apparent that they're dealing with a homicide.
They found 9mm shell casings scattered around the scene.
Identifying the victim presents a far more difficult challenge, though.
Because of the level of decomposition, it seemed like she had been out there for a few weeks, or maybe even a few months.
Here are the flyers, Detective.
Thank you, officer.
With little to go on, investigators turn to what's called the track flyer system.
It's just a law enforcement distribution network for wanted posters, missing persons.
Sheriff's investigators began looking into active missing persons cases in the region.
Comparing the flyers to the body, investigators make what seems to be a positive identification.
Do you think that's her?
Could be.
She was wearing a sweatshirt that matched the missing persons flyer.
If the body and the woman in the flyer are indeed a match, then the deceased is 21-year-old Alice Sin.
She had been reported missing in the San Francisco Bay Area about 2 months earlier.
But what could have brought this beautiful woman to such a brutal end? Alice Sin was a young woman who knew exactly what she wanted from life.
Alice was very vocal, wasn't afraid to speak her mind, very confident, very fierce.
She seemed very outgoing and outspoken about her opinions and was focused on really creating a significant future for herself.
Born in China, Alice's family immigrated to the San Francisco Bay Area when she was just 3 years old.
They decided to move here basically to provide a much brighter future for Alice so that she would have all the advantages of being raised in the United States.
And they had really put a lot of love and effort and giving to bring her to America so that she could pursue a career, follow her dream.
By 1997, Alice appeared well on her way to achieving the American dream when she was accepted to the prestigious University of California, Davis.
She was an excellent student at the University of California at Davis. It's a difficult school to get into.
During Alice's freshman year, she befriended a fellow student named Tom Wilson.
Hey, aren't you in my econ class?
Yeah, you stood in the front row.
Tom was studying finance, and everyone could see he had a lot of promise, including Alice.
It wasn't long before Tom and Alice became more than just study partners.
It's a pretty typical college romance, hanging out, going to parties, just having fun.
When you're at that age, you're just kind of living in the moment, not really thinking about growing up yet.
But after a few months of dating, a college party would alter the course of Alice's life forever.
I'll be right back, babe.
During her sophomore year, she met Raymond Wong at this party she attended with her boyfriend, Tom.
You came with Tom, right? You're not leaving with him.
That's a little forward, isn't it?
What drew Alice to Raymond was his confidence. He's very cocksure, sure of himself, and his ability to communicate with people.
Raymond had reason to be confident too. At only 26, he was already a successful businessman.
He made a lot of his money doing network IT engineering stuff at the time where it was just starting to explode, and so he was just making a lot of money.
Alice and Raymond's chance encounter soon led to a passionate love affair.
Alice leaves Tom to be with Raymond.
Tom never saw the breakup coming. He was devastated.
He was upset when she broke up with him.
Tom took this really, really hard, and he basically started telling her that she should be with him and not with Raymond.
But for Alice, the choice was clear.
At that age, we have our fantasies on what love is and what love should look like, and I think Raymond provided all of those things.
He was older, he was more mature, he was successful, somebody that had all of the qualities of somebody that you're gonna wanna build a life with.
As fate would have it, Alice and Raymond's life together ramped up far quicker than either of them had anticipated.
They've been dating for a few months, and Alice finds out that she's pregnant.
You know, I don't know if it was planned or unplanned.
Only 19 years old, Alice was faced with a difficult choice.
She could focus on her baby, or she could focus on her education.
She really wanted to put all of her energy into being a mother, so she dropped out of UC Davis.
They moved into this really nice house in Pinole, which is just north of Oakland, where Alice grew up.
Once settled into their new home, Alice devoted herself to raising their little boy.
She just seemed so happy with him. She brought so much joy into his life. She was a good mom.
As their son grew older, Alice was able to return to school part-time at a local community college.
Alice was eventually able to start taking classes again at Diablo Valley College.
She was taking night classes, so she could still be with the baby during the day.
While Alice blossomed as a mother, Raymond focused on growing his business and providing for his young family.
He was working as a contractor for Safeway Corporation, doing IT-related tasks, while Alice was at home with the baby.
Then, in the summer of 1999, Alice and Raymond received some more unexpected but exciting news.
Alice announces that she's pregnant with a second child with Raymond.
Though Alice's family worried that motherhood had prematurely derailed her career aspirations, Alice seemed happier than ever.
Raymond's consulting business was thriving, their baby was about to turn 1, and they had another one on the way.
It looked like she had the perfect life. She had the nice home. She had what appeared to be a happy family.
But on November 22nd, 1999, Alice and Raymond's life together comes crashing down. It starts when a distraught Raymond rushes into the Pinole Police Department.
Can I help you, sir?
I need to file a missing persons report.
Raymond reported Alice missing.
What police don't know is that this missing persons report is only the beginning of a lengthy investigation, one that will take them halfway around the world before ultimately leading them to the gruesome scene in the desert outside of Reno.
The crime scene is really horrifying.
Her body's been mutilated, purposefully mutilated.
Only a heartless, narcissistic, sociopathic psychopath would do something like that.
It appeared 21-year-old Alice Sin had it all: a loving relationship with her boyfriend Raymond, a gorgeous house in the Bay Area, a beautiful baby boy, and another child on the way.
She was almost a different person as she became more grown up, more responsible, and just willing to do whatever it took to be the best role model she could.
Which makes it such a surprise when a distraught Raymond arrives at Pinole Police Department on November 22nd, 1999, and reports Alice missing.
When did you last see her?
Yesterday, she left about 10:30 for a study group.
Raymond said he didn't know where the study group met or which students participated.
It's not like her to disappear like that.
Raymond said she was acting normal. You know, she wasn't stressed, she didn't appear worried, just normal day for her.
After taking the report from Raymond, Pinole police open a missing persons investigation.
Police followed up with Alice's parents, but they hadn't heard from her either.
The night before she disappeared, Alice went to her mom and dad's in Oakland and picked the baby up, and that was the last time Mr. Sin saw Alice.
Next, police tracked down several of Alice's friends at the community college where she's taking night classes.
So they talked to some of Alice's classmates, and they say that they are in a study group together, but they don't meet on Sundays.
The last time any of her classmates saw Alice was on Saturday.
We do know that her friends saw her that day. They had told us that there was nothing different about her.
Police were looking at the possibility that Alice had lied to Raymond about where she was.
When asked that question by detectives, Alice's friends don't think it's possible.
No one had anything bad to say. No one thought that she had, this devious side to her.
But 24 hours later, when Alice misses a crucial milestone in her son's life, foul play comes into question.
The baby's first birthday was 3 days after she disappeared, and they knew she would never miss his birthday.
It was very clear something bad had happened to her.
Fearing the worst, friends and family launched their own desperate search for Alice.
I put flyers all around campus, throughout the city. We were putting up flyers everywhere.
They were doing everything they could to possibly find her.
Your mind is just racing, grasping for something solid that you could do to feel like you're helping.
Finally, on November 24th, 48 hours after Raymond reported Alice missing, investigators get their first break in the case.
The police department received a call from a bakery clerk at a shopping center near Alice and Raymond's house.
She said that she thought Alice had been into the bakery that Sunday morning to discuss ordering a cake for the baby's first birthday.
Now they're searching around the shopping area looking for any signs of Alice.
Within minutes of receiving the tip, investigators find Alice's car parked outside the shopping center. Could it be the break detectives need to find Alice?
Detectives? Hey. It's open. CSI's on their way.
All right, thank you.
It's a large parking lot, but it was not parked adjacent to any stores. It was just sort of out in the middle of the lot.
Finding Alice's abandoned car raises a troubling possibility.
One of the theories they were looking at is that she might have been kidnapped.
She could have been attacked in the parking lot and abducted.
Hoping to find any eyewitnesses, officers canvass the shopping center.
They questioned people that work there. Unfortunately, no one they spoke to saw anything, so it didn't produce any leads.
There was no video, there was, nothing strange that would point to like an aha moment for investigators.
When detectives call in CSI for a closer look at Alice's car, the results are just as disappointing.
The entire car was clean.
There was no blood and there was no evidence of foul play.
Fearing that Alice might have been abducted, detectives decide to reach out to her boyfriend, Raymond, who filed the missing persons report.
Investigators are simply looking for more information. Was there someone who might have had a reason to hurt Alice?
That afternoon, detectives head to the home Raymond and Alice shared.
The Pinole Police Department knocked on the door, thinking that they would be talking to Raymond.
But when the door opens, the investigation takes a surprising turn.
Hi. Can I help you?
Detectives were surprised because instead of Raymond, it was a young woman who opened the door.
Good afternoon, ma'am. We're looking for Raymond Wong.
Ray, there's someone at the door for you.
At this point, the detectives are really thinking, who is this woman?
We just thought the timing of it was kind of unusual. It seemed very weird she was there.
It's been 3 days since pregnant Pinole, California resident Alice Sen went missing, and police are beginning to wonder if there's more to her disappearance than her boyfriend Raymond Wong is letting on.
Police had gone to Alice and Raymond's house to deliver the news about finding her car, and a young woman answered the door.
Ray, there's someone at the door for you.
What is it, Jennifer? Oh, hey, detectives. What can I do for you?
We just had a couple questions about Alice, if you have the time.
Yeah, come on in.
Raymond's girlfriend is missing, and now suddenly there's this other woman in the home. Obviously, detectives have some questions.
When Raymond sits down with detectives, his answers lead to even more questions.
So, Jennifer, who's she?
She's my other girlfriend.
Police had uncovered this love triangle between Alice, her boyfriend Raymond, and a woman named Jennifer Tran.
But Raymond tells detectives the love triangle has nothing to do with Alice's disappearance.
Detectives asked Raymond if Alice and Jennifer knew about each other, and he said yes, they all had an open relationship.
No jealousy.
We're beyond that.
Raymond told police that he and Alice had a good relationship, that Alice and Jennifer both knew all about each other, and that both women, frankly, adored him.
According to Raymond, Jennifer had come to the house not only to support him, but to help care for his and Alice's 1-year-old son.
He needed her to assume all the responsibilities that Alice would have been doing.
Raymond, where were you on the night of Sunday, November 21st?
Alice was with her study group. Our son was with my mom, and so I decided to go over to Jennifer's place, and we headed into the city.
They'd gone to, I think, a flea market and lunch in San Francisco. They had just been together the whole day.
To confirm his alibi, detectives ask Raymond if they can speak to Jennifer. His response catches them off guard.
Yeah, that's fine. But I think that she would like for me to be here too.
Raymond forced his way into the interview. He wouldn't allow them to talk to Jennifer without him being there.
Detectives have little choice but to comply.
On a consensual interview, you can't force someone to come in and talk to you. So, if they say, I will only come talk to you, but Raymond needs to be there with me, then Raymond gets to sit in the room.
Jennifer, we just had a few questions about your relationship with Raymond and how Alice fits into that.
Well, it's not as strange as you might think. We're all in an open relationship, so.
Her comments in regards to Alice was that they were aware of each other, there weren't any issues. It was just a fact that they accepted they were both Raymond's love interests.
She admits that she and Alice weren't really thrilled about each other, but they remained cordial.
They had agreed that they would coexist, basically to keep Raymond happy.
Jennifer's interview confirms the rest of Raymond's story, too.
She had told the investigators that she was there to watch Alice's kid.
But is Jennifer telling the whole truth? Detectives aren't sure.
She was essentially the third wheel. She had every reason to be angry and to be upset.
Detectives press Jennifer to see if she has anything to do with Alice's disappearance.
Jennifer denies everything. She claims that she didn't have anything to do with the murder.
Jennifer claimed to have spent the whole day with Raymond the day that Alice disappeared.
Detectives ask Raymond and Jennifer if they know anyone who might want to harm Alice. Raymond can think of only one man, Alice's ex-boyfriend, Tom Wilson.
Raymond introduced Tom's name into the investigation, and Raymond's theory was that Tom was insanely jealous.
There's no question that Tom and Alice's breakup had been abrupt and that Tom had taken it hard. There definitely could still be some anger there.
It had been a couple of years, but sometimes people hold grudges, especially scorned lovers. And Tom was definitely a scorned lover.
You think Tom did something to Alice?
Well, he knows people that could.
Raymond hinted that Tom may have had some sort of gang connection.
Even though Tom now worked in finance, there were some rumors that he had had some ties to a gang in the area.
In the 90s, here in that area, Pinole, there was definitely some gangs that were running through the area, so that was something worth looking at.
Armed with this new lead and with nothing concrete connecting Raymond or Jennifer to Alice's disappearance, detectives conclude their interview. Over the next few days, they dig into Tom Wilson's background.
Tom was living in the Midwest in a large city related to training he was doing for his job.
There's nothing to indicate that Tom had the propensity for violence. Tom had never been in trouble with the law, never had any issues, no reports of domestic violence or anything like that.
Even so, Tom's alleged jealous streak makes him a potential suspect. So on December 1st, detectives conduct a phone interview with him.
Hello?
Tom insists there is no way he could have had anything to do with Alice's disappearance.
According to Tom, he had been living in the Midwest for months and hadn't been anywhere near California on November 21st.
We were able to verify that the story that he gave us checked out as legitimate.
But could Tom have enlisted the help of someone in the Bay Area to abduct Alice?
Tom basically laughed at the idea that he could have ties to organized crime.
None of that panned out as true.
He says he's moved on. Any feelings, good or bad, Tom once harbored for Alice are long gone.
At this point, he's essentially ruled out as a suspect.
Though investigators are now able to rule out Tom Wilson as a suspect, they aren't ready to give up on the idea that a jealous lover might be behind Alice's disappearance.
Detectives decided to take a closer look at Jennifer.
Police talked to several of Alice's friends to try to find out more about her relationship to Jennifer.
One of her friends told detectives that Alice had been receiving threatening messages from Jennifer.
Acting on this tip, detectives gain access to Alice's email account, which reveals the true nature of her and Jennifer's relationship.
The emails were really hostile. It was very clear that there was a lot of animosity.
Alice and Jennifer hated each other, and so they took every chance they could to make sure the other person knew that they disliked each other and that one of them was going to be the one who ended up with Raymond finally.
Since Alice lived with Raymond and was pregnant with his child, it appeared she had the upper hand.
Alice may have had one more advantage, too.
While Raymond and Alice are both Chinese Americans, Jennifer is not.
She was actually Vietnamese, so she wasn't of the same culture.
A fact that Alice rarely let Jennifer forget.
They had exchanged lots of hateful messages full of racial slurs.
Alice basically told Jennifer that Raymond loved her and that he and she were building a family together. and that nothing was going to break up the family.
Detectives believe the bitter rivalry between the two women gives Jennifer a clear motive.
All of a sudden, Alice is missing and Jennifer's already in that house. She was a natural suspect.
Where are you going?
Based on the contents of one email detectives recover, it's also clear that the struggle for Raymond's affection had pushed Jennifer close to the edge.
There was sort of a thinly veiled reference to the fact that she was going to commit suicide, since Raymond clearly was so happy with Alice.
But now detectives wonder if rather than take her own life, Jennifer had done something to Alice instead.
That's when the investigation began swinging from this is a missing person case to this is a potential case of murder.
You're a homewrecker. You're the one who's ruining my entire psycho. My brother, back the hell up, you psycho.
A lot of people worry when they hear about open relationships because they think that there's going to be some jealousy that's going to come to a really ugly head.
Though detectives are increasingly worried that Alice may have been murdered, it's a fear they keep to themselves.
They don't want to alarm the family unnecessarily, so they don't share this information just yet.
But with Alice's whereabouts still a mystery, detectives have to be patient. They continue to keep tabs on Jennifer in the following weeks. Meanwhile, Alice's family still hasn't given up hope.
Her family just really wants to believe that she's still okay, so they're still holding out hope that she's going to be found.
Alice's parents were out, for days on end, posting the flyers and contacting the news media, hoping to get some coverage of Alice's disappearance.
On January 24th, 2000, 2 months after Alice's disappearance, detectives received news that shatters all hope for her safe return.
2 prospectors found what appeared to be Alice's body in the desert outside of Reno.
The victim was wearing some of the same clothing that matched the clothing on Alice's missing person flyer.
When investigators arrived on scene, it was clear to them that the victim had been murdered.
There were several shell casings at the scene.
But it's not just the shell casings or the grim visage of Alice's decomposing remains that shock detectives.
There was game money, fake money scattered all around the body.
What made the discovery even more unusual was what detectives had discovered written on all of this fake money that was scattered around everywhere.
You've got writing on them.
The board game money had ZOG and NWO written on it.
What could this mean?
What a bizarre thing to find at a crime scene. It just added a whole new layer of mystery to this case.
After 2 months of searching, family and friends of missing 21-year-old mother, Alice Sen, have just received some devastating news.
Well, a couple of prospectors came across the body of a young woman in a very remote part of the Nevada desert.
Investigators believed they had found Alice's body. The missing persons flyer had gone out interstate, and so it was just really good investigative work on the part of the Churchill County Sheriff's Office.
One of the investigators said, she kind of looks like the woman on the photo. And so when they connected with Pinole, they were able to identify her.
Due to the condition of the body, it required dental records to confirm her identity.
When I got news that they found her body, I had a mixed emotions. On one hand, I was relieved because it was finally an answer, even though that answer wasn't what we wanted to hear. The other part was just trying to be strong for my friends and her family.
Alice's parents were absolutely heartbroken. They had held out hope that she would be found alive. And it was absolutely horrendous to see their pain and to see their suffering and their grief.
While Alice's friends and family grieve, detectives in Pinole, California officially switch gears from a missing persons case to a homicide investigation.
Pinole police had to cast a wide net, but at the end of the day, they focused squarely on Raymond and Jennifer because of this love triangle between Raymond, Alice, and Jennifer.
But a strange discovery made near Alice's remains threatens to upend everything investigators know about the case.
When the investigators got up there, one of the items of evidence they found was board game money that had been kind of thrown around her body that had ZOG and NWO written on it.
When the investigators researched those initials, they're commonly used for 2 white supremacist organizations.
NWO, which we believe stood for New World Order, and ZOG for Zionist-occupied government.
It looked like Alice's murder could be a racially motivated hate crime.
The initials on the money seem to point in that direction, but detectives aren't convinced.
A homicide, kidnapping involving white supremacists is very rare.
Whether Alice's death was racially motivated or not, the autopsy confirms that whoever killed her was fueled by rage.
This was a very horrific killing. She had been shot 4 times.
The first shot went through her upper arm and then into her chest. The second shot was in the middle of her back. A third shot was on the side of her head. And a fourth shot appears to have been placed deliberately directly between her eyes. Basically the coup de grace to make sure that she was dead.
According to the autopsy, the bullet wounds are just the beginning of what Alice's killer did to her.
Her body's been mutilated, purposefully mutilated. One of her breasts was removed. Her hair had been cut off.
It appears that some sort of acid was used to melt the flesh from her face.
But for detectives, one horrifying detail of the autopsy report stands out among the rest.
Her uterus had been cut out of her body. And in November of 1999, Alice had been 4 months pregnant with a second child.
We believe her uterus was cut out to remove the baby.
The injuries suggest they were trying to hide the identity of the victim and that the victim was pregnant.
This means the killer is likely someone who knew her and wanted to make sure that no one could connect him to her murder.
This information points detectives back towards the father of Alice's baby, Raymond, and his other girlfriend, Jennifer Tran.
Raymond and Jennifer said that Alice was okay with their arrangement, but based on Alice's emails, detectives know that Jennifer is jealous of Alice and especially angry that Alice is carrying Raymond's second child.
So detectives are now thinking that either Raymond did this because he did not want a second child, Jennifer did this out of jealousy, or perhaps they both conspired together to murder Alice.
Hoping to question Raymond and Jennifer again, detectives attempt to reach out to them and make an alarming discovery.
Raymond and Jennifer had essentially disappeared at that point.
Detectives eventually figured out that he and Jennifer are in Calgary, Canada, where Raymond is doing some consulting work.
If there's no court that's ordering you to turn over your passport, you're free to travel and go wherever you like.
With Jennifer and Raymond out of the country, detectives in Pinole opt for another approach.
They'd ended up serving a search warrant at his house.
What they find inside is completely unexpected.
They discovered that Raymond had a number of AK-47s, as well as other illegal assault weapons.
I remembered there being an arsenal, essentially.
There were well over 30 extended magazines. There were 3 hand grenades. There was some dynamite.
Cops have to bring in a bomb squad to dispose of all these explosives.
Raymond's stockpile of weapons alarms detectives, but their attention is largely drawn to Raymond's cache of 9mm pistols.
The handguns were the same caliber as the casings that were recovered at the homicide scene.
That leaves police wondering if maybe one of them could be the murder weapon.
All of those weapons were sent to our crime lab.
As detectives continue their search of Raymond's residence, they make another troubling find.
Police found Alice's belongings stuffed into garbage bags and evidence that Jennifer had already moved into the house.
It was almost like, oh, she's gone, she's missing. Jennifer, move right in.
Jennifer basically just stepped into Alice's life and lived as if Alice wasn't alive anymore.
It's looking more and more like Jennifer and Raymond are both involved in Alice's murder.
But just as detectives begin to zero in on Raymond and Jennifer, a stunning development suggests they may have been too quick to dismiss the notion that Alice's murder was a hate crime.
What do you got?
News agencies here in the San Francisco Bay Area received an email allegedly from the Aryan Knights claiming responsibility for Alice's murder.
The anonymous author claimed to be writing on behalf of a white supremacist group and threatened that the killings wouldn't stop until they had a white America.
Luckily, the emails leave an electronic trail that detectives are able to follow. But what they discover only adds to the mystery.
Investigators with our Department of Justice traced that email back through a server in the United Kingdom.
It was like, wow, this is crazy.
I mean, we're much deeper than we had initially anticipated.
February 8th, 2000. 2 weeks after mining company employees found Alice Sinn's body in the Nevada desert, detectives are revisiting the possibility that her murder had been racially motivated.
There were signs that pointed to a white supremacist group as being responsible for her killing. Members of the media also got emails from people purporting to be white supremacists, also taking responsibility for killing Alice Sin.
Investigators with our Department of Justice traced that email back through a server in the United Kingdom.
So now this case has become even more mysterious.
But just when it seems the case can't get more intriguing, a computer expert with the Department of Justice uncovers another shocking clue.
The forensic analyst digs in and determined that although the server was in the United Kingdom, this is not where the email originated.
Were you able to find the source of the email?
Do you guys know anyone all the way up here in Calgary?
That had come from an internet cafe in Calgary, Canada, which is the same place where Raymond had been staying in Canada for work.
At this point, the police are convinced that this white supremacy thing is just a hoax to throw them off the killer's trail.
Jennifer Tran was in Canada with Raymond, so it was possible that she had sent the email.
Or did Raymond send it himself?
California detectives contacted Canadian law enforcement, who got in touch with the owners of the cafe.
The owners of the cyber cafe identified Raymond as having been there around the time the email had been sent.
Police were pretty convinced that Raymond was involved in at least trying to cover up Alice's murder.
With Raymond and Jennifer still out of the country, detectives conduct another search of their home in Pinole.
We did go back a second time with another search warrant, and his computers were seized at that time.
A search of Raymond's hard drives and email servers reveals additional correspondence between Jennifer and Raymond.
The conversations he had with Jennifer was that he loved Jennifer, that he had made a mistake by being with Alice.
That doesn't prove that he killed her, though. Raymond might just be trying to string Jennifer along, trying to tell her what she wants to hear.
But while his emails to Jennifer aren't inherently incriminating, other items on Raymond's hard drive cast him in an even more suspicious light.
They found all kinds of pornography that was sexually and physically abusive towards women.
He clearly had a fascination with this type of brutality.
Naturally, detectives find that significant, considering the way that Alice's killer mutilated her body.
Though the images further bolster detectives' theory that Raymond was involved in Alice's murder, they still don't have enough physical evidence to extradite either him or Jennifer back to the States.
There's nothing directly associating Raymond to the actual crime scene.
CSI collected a number of firearms from Raymond's house, but it was a dead end.
None of the firearms in the house could have fired the shots.
Then on February 23rd, investigators make a chilling discovery on Raymond's computer, one that will allow them to arrest Raymond, just not for murder.
As part of the investigation, they found he had a whole bunch of child porn on his computer.
Thousands of downloads had been discovered.
When Raymond and Jennifer returned to the States on March 7th, 2000, police are waiting for them.
Raymond Wong, you're under arrest for child pornography. Put your hands behind your back.
No sooner is Raymond in custody than he and his lawyer begin to publicly refute the charges.
Raymond's attorney claimed that the prosecutors just kind of came up with this child pornography thing because they didn't have enough evidence to prosecute him for murder.
But despite those claims, on April 16th, 2001, Raymond pleads no contest to the child pornography charges.
The child pornography was so disastrous. They looked at him as if, he was some kind of a sick animal.
He was sentenced to more than 2 years in federal prison.
Alice's parents actually sued for custody of the baby, and they won.
While Raymond sits in prison on the child pornography charges, detectives attempt to build their murder case against him.
Working with circumstantial evidence, everything pointed at Raymond. From the forensic evidence off the computer to Jennifer moving in, to conversations that they had.
Raymond's demeanor and his attitude and how we've come to know him over the years, we realized that Raymond was always going to be the mastermind. Jennifer was always the passive one.
I didn't want to think that Raymond did it, but as I heard more details of the story, it was harder and harder to think that he didn't do it or have something to do with it.
But when detectives take their case to prosecutors, the DA and his team aren't as convinced.
District attorneys came to the conclusion that there was not sufficient evidence to charge Raymond.
There was no physical evidence connecting either Raymond or Jennifer to the shooting.
So in 2005, when Raymond is released from prison, he's a free man.
We would see Raymond. He would still drive around through town, and he'd always have that smirk on his face. It was infuriating. It was still a constant reminder that he got away literally with murder.
Meanwhile, Alice's friends and family are growing increasingly disheartened.
We were just losing hope that there would be resolution and that he would get conviction.
However, in 2009, almost a decade after Alice first disappeared, Raymond Wong finds himself back in jail.
He was arrested on the old charge of failing to register himself as a sex offender.
It's required through the courts to immediately register with whatever police agency that you live in their jurisdiction as a sex offender.
He was supposed to register every year, and he actually missed it.
But Raymond easily posts the $100,000 bail, and a few hours later, buys a plane ticket.
Shortly after his arrest, he fled to China.
He lives in China, and he manages to evade all attempts to find him.
More than 2 years pass, and neither federal law enforcement nor authorities in China can pinpoint Raymond's whereabouts. And though he left his girlfriend, Jennifer Tran, behind, she too begins to fall off investigators' radar.
They had nothing to charge Jennifer with, so she moved away, started a new life, and it was a dead end for detectives.
So many years passed, people were wondering, is anybody, let alone Raymond, going to be charged with murder?
Finally, on December 19th, 2011, 12 years since Allison's murder, Pinole police catch an unexpected break.
Got a call that Homeland Security believed that they had Raymond Wong in custody.
All right, thank you. We're on the way. Raymond's back in the country.
12 years after Alice's disappearance, Raymond tries to re-enter the U.S. with a fake passport.
Pinole detectives rush to San Francisco International Airport.
There was an FBI agent there, and he had pulled me to the side and said, the person we have in custody is claiming his name's Ed Wong, and he's got a passport under that name and a social security number that's entirely different.
But as soon as they step into the holding room, detectives know they have their man.
Hey, Raymond, buddy.
He kind of looks at me and he said, who? And I said, dude, come on.
December 19th, 2011, 12 years after Alice Sin first disappeared, detectives in Pinole, California finally have her alleged killer, Raymond Wong, back in custody.
Raymond had been arrested at the airport by Homeland Security. He was arrested on an outstanding warrant for failure to register as a sex offender.
Since Raymond might not be held on this charge for long, detectives know they have to act fast.
That's only temporary, though. As soon as Raymond's arrested, the detectives dig back into the murder case, trying to find something that would stick.
This case had always been a kind of a thorn in the side of Pinole. PD kind of constantly knowing that we had a suspect that was out there, that was free, that had fled prosecution. So it was one of those things where every single person that worked at that police department wanted this case.
Despite the prosecutor's efforts to have him held as a flight risk, he's able to post bail again.
We get a call from the sheriff's department who said, hey, Raymond's bailing. He's gonna be out of custody in about an hour or so. That caused a little bit of panic at the police department.
Fearing that Raymond might flee again, detectives decide to make one last-ditch effort to tie him to Alice's murder.
Detectives brought Jennifer in for a new round of questioning.
I wanted a statement from Jennifer.
We always knew Jennifer was involved in some way, and they weren't really in contact with each other anymore. That was the weak spot. If anybody was gonna give up all the information, it was gonna be Jennifer.
So we had to ask her to come down, and we did a 4-hour-long interview with her. And we told her, you don't have to be here. You can leave at any time. You're not under arrest. We just need to talk to you about this case.
Raymond's back in the U.S.
Raymond's back? Oh my God.
When she found out that he was back in the country, she was genuinely afraid.
He's back to kill me
Why?
because I know everything.
I think Raymond had snuck back into the country to kill Jennifer and to silence the last person in the investigation that would have known the truth.
I think that's reasonable. He's killed somebody before, so it was a very real possibility that he was coming back here for her.
Tell us what you know. Help us put him away so he can't hurt you.
She had a whole life. She had children. She had a lot to lose. So I think she knew that she had to tell us the truth.
Eventually, she finally cracks.
Jennifer says that rather than the romantic Sunday that she and Raymond had supposedly spent together the day that Alice disappeared, what really happened was that they had taken Alice on a drive.
The full story we got was that the murder had been planned for a couple months prior. Her and Raymond had hatched it and had began discussing that the way they were going to kill Alice was to convince Alice to get in a car with them.
My suspicion is that Alice never had any idea where they were going, but I have no idea how that all unfolded, that Alice agreed to even be in the car with them.
We drove for hours and hours, and we ended up at this desert.
According to Jennifer, that's when it became clear that Raymond still wasn't sure which girlfriend he wanted to keep and which one he planned to kill.
The way Jennifer described it is they were all at the scene, this desolate area, and Raymond came out with a gun.
Now, which one do I want?
Raymond!
Turn around! Turn around!
He's a pathological liar, totally manipulative.
He's enjoying it, torturing them both.
Eenie? Meenie? Miny? Mo.
Ultimately, it was Alice who ended up getting the shots fired into her.
But Jennifer admits that Raymond didn't fire all of those shots.
Raymond then handed the gun to Jennifer and said, "We're in this together. You have to shoot her too."
Raymond has Jennifer take the gun and forces her to take the final shot.
Jennifer said that Raymond threatened to kill her if she didn't participate.
Jennifer also claims that the post-mortem mutilation of Alice's body was all Raymond.
Jennifer tells the police that she stayed in the car and wasn't there when her body may have been mutilated and the fake money strewn all over the crime scene.
It's a horrifying story, but is it true? Detectives think so.
She corroborated all the information that we already had, and she put herself at that location. So for us, that had a lot of weight because she very well could get charged for homicide.
It was a big weight off her shoulders. You could tell that she had been a victim in this too. She had been manipulated by Raymond and had been living with the fact that she'd been involved in another person's murder.
Thanks to Jennifer, the cops were finally ready to arrest Raymond for murder.
Though he had been released on bond for his sex offender charge, Raymond had not fled the country, and the police was able to bring him in.
I said, "I want to talk to you about the murder of Allison," and he said, "Oh, I want an attorney if we're going to talk about that." Okay, so then you're under arrest.
This time, he's held without bail because of the flight risk issue.
Tim and I made a point to go visit Alice's dad and told him that we finally had him in custody. He started breaking down. We started tearing up. He was just very thankful that he was finally able to put his daughter to rest.
On May 27, 2015, more than 15 years since she first disappeared, Raymond Wong finally goes to trial for the murder of Alice Sen.
The thing that shocked me most was that it took so long for them to actually be able to serve justice.
The DA provided evidence to the jury showing that Raymond clearly did not want Alice in his life.
Raymond wanted Jennifer, but he was unwilling to give up or share custody of his son with Alice, so he decided she had to die.
Alice had become entirely inconvenient for him. Things were getting way too complicated between Alice and Jennifer. And then he had this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to act out these twisted, undescribable fantasies.
I think Jennifer's statement was what took it over the top. It tied everything together. She told us all the missing parts.
However, the defense claims that the prosecution's case is the real fantasy, one built entirely upon Jennifer's lies.
They said the prosecution's case wouldn't even really be happening had it not been for Jennifer's confession.
She had all the motive in the world, and she had the hostility.
To counter Jennifer's statement, the defense puts Raymond on the stand.
If I think I have someone who is under the law not guilty, I want them to take a stand.
Raymond got on the stand and claimed that he loved Alice.
He alluded to could have been anyone that killed her kind of thing. And he just claimed his innocence.
I thought he did a great job. He had eye contact with the jury, and he was adamant with respect to his innocence.
But the jury doesn't buy it.
They found Raymond guilty of the murder of Alice.
He was sentenced to 50 years to life in prison.
Just crying. Everything that I held back in for so long. Finally, just released.
In exchange for her cooperation, Jennifer pleads guilty to accessory to murder charges.
She was sentenced to 5 years probation, 500 hours of community service.
Though Jennifer never spends a day behind bars, those close to the case all agree that the crime's true mastermind got the justice he deserved.
The real monster, I really do believe, was Raymond.
How could you do that to someone that you claim to love? Someone that was the mother of your child, that you had spent all of those years with? How?
He was just playing these two women as much as he possibly could.
But no amount of justice can give Alice back the promising future she deserved.
Here's a woman who thought she found Mr. Right, but instead she found a man who was just a monster, pure evil, and she put aside her own bright future to be with him. Now, because of this, she won't see her own kids grow up. It's a tragedy.
Alice was a strong individual, but even the strongest has some vulnerability, and we're all susceptible to getting hurt. Don't take life for granted.